Hello viewers, in this video I'm going to look at the Realtek RTL8159 USB 3.2 10 gigabit per second Ethernet adapter. The most interesting thing about this Ethernet adapter is, unlike all of the other 10 gigabit per second Ethernet adapters, this one will work with USB 3.2. Sounds great, doesn't it? So of course there's a little catch. And the catch is it needs to be USB 3.2 Gen 2 times 2. That's the variant of the USB standard that gives you 20 gigabit per second bandwidth. If you use it on a USB 3.2 Gen 2 times 1 USB port, you only get 5 gigabit per second, which is kind of disappointing. But one of the good things about this chip in this adapter is it doesn't use much power. I think it's around about 0.9 watts, which means it generates a lot less heat, and that's a great thing. So I ordered this from AliExpress. Let's see what we have in the box. So you have the adapter itself. This is the adapter. It has RJ45 at this end, and it has USB-C, that's the 3.2 Gen 2 times 2 connector, that end, and is pretty small, as you can see. And this one is green. It's called Daewoo. All these devices though are made by 1 or 2 companies in China, and then some sticks a brand name on it. You also have a rather short USB-C to USB-C USB Gen 2 times something or other cable, which must be good for at least 10 gigabits per second, otherwise it wouldn't work. And finally, a wrist strap, which leaves me wondering what you would really use this for. But anyway, you get a wrist strap, and you can see that could attach onto there. If you can think of a good reason for having a wrist strap, comments in the section below. Now that we've seen what's in the box, let's get back into the studio and test it out. And I'm going to test it with a Mac running the latest version of macOS and a mini PC running Windows 11. Testing on macOS. I'm going to run 2 tests on my MacBook Pro. First, I'm going to test the network performance using iPerf 3. The way I'm running that is I have the iPerf 3 server running in a Docker container on my NAS. NAS in this instance is a Ugreen NAS Sync DXP 6800 Pro, which has dual 10 gigabit Ethernet ports, but only one of those is actually connected to my switch. Second test I'm going to do is to use the Blackmagic Disk Speed App on my Mac to test the transfer speeds for editing video files. And the way that works is it writes files to the SSD on the NAS and then reads them back, and that allows it to give you a good idea of what the performance would be with different types of video file. The way I've set up the network adapter is to connect it directly to a Thunderbolt 4 port on my MacBook Pro. The setup I normally use is to have an IOCrest USB 4 10 gigabit per second network adapter plugged in to the port that I'm actually going to use for this test. Because what I found was if you plug it into a Thunderbolt 4 hub, in this case I have an Amazon Basics one, you don't get the full 10 gigabit per second performance. Now I'm going to start iPerf 3 on the NAS. On my NAS, iPerf 3 is installed in a Docker container. So the first thing I need to do is to start Docker. And then I need to go to the Container tab, and I just need to start it by clicking the Enable button. And that's a success. So now I can go back and run terminal. So the command I'm running is iPerf 3-C. The -C is for client, and then the IP address of the NAS. The result is surprising. I wasn't expecting to get 10 gigabit per second. I was expecting to get 5, but what I'm actually getting is 6.21. The reason I wasn't expecting to get the full 10 is that my experience is that when you try and run USB 3.2 Gen 2x2 devices off a Thunderbolt 4 port on a Mac, you only get USB 3.2 Gen 2x1 speeds. But we are getting a little bit more than that. What we're not getting is the full 10 gigabit per second. In terms of temperature, I don't have the equipment to do this rigorously, but just touching the device, which has been plugged in for about 30 minutes, it's running a lot cooler than the IOCrest USB 4 adapter. And that is what I would expect because it's a newer chip and it's a lower power chip. Now let's run the Blackmagic Disk Speed Test and see what we get. So in Finder on macOS, I've now connected to the drive on the NAS, which is the SSD. It's a crucial 2 terabyte one. And I'm now going to select that as a target drive in the Blackmagic Disk Speed app. And the way you do that is you click on this little cogwheel here and you go select target drive. So I ran it for a little bit, and what you can see is we get about 630 megabytes per second write and about 570 read. That's not too bad. I was only really expecting to get about 500, so I'm getting a bit more than 500. It's disappointing though, because I was hoping that this would give the full 10 gigabit per second, and you can see it doesn't. I'm now going to run 2 tests on Windows 11 Pro. First, I'm going to test the network performance using iPerf 3. I'm testing the network performance between my Beelink mini PC, that's a Beelink SER8 AMD 8745HS mini PC, and I'm testing performance between that little computer and my NAS. The second test I'm going to do is to use the Blackmagic Disk Speed Test, and again I'm going to test the performance to the NAS. I have connected the adapter to the USB 4 port of my Beelink mini PC, and we're now ready to do the test. So if you've just got this adapter and you're setting it up on Windows, the first thing you need to do is to install a driver. It won't work properly with Windows out of the box. You need to install the driver first. So what you need to do is to open up your favourite browser. I'm using Google Chrome, and you need to type in Realtek, and then you need to type in the chipset, which is RTL8159, followed by Windows driver or Windows 11 driver or something along those lines. And then you want to go to the link to the Realtek website, and then you'll get this page. If you scroll down to the bottom of the page, you can find the drivers, and if you look closely at the top, so Windows 11 and Windows Server 1. I already have the driver installed, so I'm not going to download and install it. Now I'm going to open PowerShell on Windows and run iPerf 3. So the command you need is iPerf 3, then you need -C for client, and then you need to follow that with the IP address where the iPerf 3 instance running as a server resides. Now in my case it's running on my NAS and it's already running, so I don't need to do anything. I'm now going to run the test and let's see what we get. I ran the test 3 times and I'm getting consistently 7.3 gigabits per second. Now off camera I've tried fiddling with the driver settings, but it didn't make any difference. In fact, everything I changed made it worse. And I did a bit of research, web research, and I found that these results are actually quite consistent with what other people are reporting. Running the Blackmagic Disk Speed Test, I find that I get a little bit under 500 megabytes per second, both write and read. That's a little bit less than I would expect given the iPerf 3 results. So having done all those tests, what are my conclusions? I kind of feel it's a bit of a mess. So here goes. If you're on Mac, don't buy this. Buy a Thunderbolt 4 or Thunderbolt 5 10 gigabit per second Ethernet adapter. If you have a Windows PC with a USB 4 port, then don't buy this. buy a USB 4 adapter, you'll get better performance. If you have a Windows PC and you don't have a USB 4 port, but you do have a USB 3.2 Gen 2 x 2 port, then this is a good option. Doesn't generate much heat and you should get reasonably good performance. I did some research into Linux, and this device will be supported in the Linux 7.2 kernel, but it's not supported in lower kernels. If you have a lower kernel, you need to install a driver. If you're interested in seeing tests on Linux, put a comment in the comment section below. Thank you for watching. I hope you found the video useful. If you did, please click on the like and subscribe buttons. There may be affiliate links in the section below in the description. If there are and you click on these, you help support my channel at no cost to you. And if you do that in future, I'd be fantastically grateful.